just forget how to do it. Right there. It lights up. All right, everybody, let's get started, please. Welcome to your September meeting. All right. All right, we have a quorum, and let's do introductions, please. I'm Michelle Day, at large.
Sharon Brown, City of Fountain.
Jessica McMullen, Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments.
Ann Esch, Green Mountain Falls.
Julie Ott, League of Women Voters.
Bruce Davis, City of Victor.
Warren Childers, at large.
Bill Bowles, Park County.
Tamara Dipner, City of Colorado Springs.
Hal Moffett, El Paso County.
Terry Hayes, Town of Monument.
Kim Mutchler, at large.
Roy Rosenthal, Manitou Springs.
Tim O'Donnell, Kono.
Jim Moore, at large.
Staff. Jessica Bechtel, PKCG.
And the audience, please.
And Braithwaite, PKCG.
Thanks. Welcome, everybody. All right. Consent items. I have a motion, or are there any concerns on the consent items?
Somehow I omitted in the report from the board meeting the name of the person who was recognized for 10 years of service, and I'm going to look to Jessica to help me.
We were proud to recognize Jeannie Dennis.
Jeannie Dent.
Jeannie Dennis.
Dennis.
It was very nicely done. I apologize for missing her name on that.
Awesome. Any other corrections to the consent items? Ken?
We have an item that's not on the agenda,
Yes, please. Thank you.
Move we accept the consent agenda?
I'll move. Accept it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Thank you. All right, any public comments? Okay, moving on to action items. Ken, first one up, and you can let us know which one you want to withdraw at this time.
Good afternoon, Ken Prather, PPACG Transportation Planner. I'd like to withdraw item 4C, project cost overruns, and postpone that until next month.
Okay, thank you.
Then jumping into performance measures. We've talked about this a little bit already. Federal law requirements is pushing transportation planning to be more data-driven, quantitative-driven, making the best decisions get the best bang for the buck, for the money, and requires the states to set targets for safety and congestion, and they say CMAQ and air quality, and we'll talk about that. And then 6 months after the state sets their targets, MPOs are required to set theirs. Now, the MPOs may adopt the state targets, and basically what that means is that we would, in our long-range plans and tips, we would select projects that would contribute towards achieving the state goal of better safety, less congestion, less travel time, things like that. Or we can set our own that's specific for PPACG, and then we must still show in our plans and tips how the projects that we are selecting and programming lead towards the achievement of these goals. And I know there was a lot of confusion with the board, and I think with the CAC as well, about some of these targets, so I wanted to go over them a little bit. There was some concern about how you could have a target that was going, this is poor condition target. We're currently at almost 1%. In 2 years, we say we'll be at 1%, and then in the fourth year, our fourth year target, we're saying we're going to double the poor roads and be at 2%. These are statistical or mathematical type targets. They're not aspirational targets. CDOT actually, in calculating these targets, says that following the trend of current funding levels and wear and tear on the roads, in 4 years, our roads will be 4 to 6% poor. So the target is, rather than going to 4 or 6% poor, we will try to limit that deterioration to only 1%. So that's why you see a target that looks like we're saying our target is to increase the percentage of poor roads. Well, we want the increase to be less than what it's currently projected to be. So that was how some of these targets look a little funny. Any questions on that one before we move on to another?
Yeah, I kind of understand it, but I was thinking that it would be better be called a forecast, but the way you're explaining it. But you're saying what you're trying to do is decrease the increase.
Right.
So
increase at a slower rate.
If that's the approach used here, how come the good condition keeps going up?
Well, we want good to go up. So if we're at 45%, we're spending money, we're fixing the roads. So we would go up in 2 years to 46%, in 2 years to 46%. Now, what is not shown here is the fair condition. So there's a big category in fair. But these targets, these are the national targets, and so these are the words that's in the law that has come down from the federal level that we're kind of having to live with.
Okay.
For the carbon or the CMAQ down here at the bottoms, the area that is grayed out is CMAQ, traffic congestion, hours of excessive delay at the PM peak. Now, this only applies to areas right now, only applies to areas over 1 million in population. So in Colorado, that's only the DRCOG Denver area. In 2 years, it will apply to us if we are still a maintenance area for carbon monoxide. The CMAQ criteria only applies to maintenance and non-attainment areas for carbon monoxide, ozone, particulate material, and VOCs, volatile organic compounds. And we are scheduled to end our maintenance period in 2020 or 2019. So we're still kind of having to get that clarified from EPA. October of 2019 will be 20 years from when we went into the maintenance period. And so it's going to be right on the border of the next, in 2 years when these standards are reviewed, whether we are in or out, whether we'll have to do something for another 2 years. But then we'll be out of it, and none of the CMAQ criteria will apply to us. Now, the other thing that is really...
Ken, just to clarify, you know I'm easily confused, so be patient with me. The 4 elements that are at the bottom of the chart, that is the first attachment to your memo, the various air quality elements, when it says reduction, is that a reduction to that level or by that amount against some other measurement?
You're almost there on the second part, and that's what I want to talk about.
See, I get closer.
The CMAQ, the reductions that you see here are reductions in emissions by the projects that are funded by CMAQ. It's a measure of the effectiveness of the projects that are funded. So if you don't have very many projects funded with CMAQ, you won't have high numbers here. If you have projects, a trail project is eligible for CMAQ funds. In our case, a CMAQ-funded project must reduce carbon monoxide emissions. It can reduce other emissions, but it must reduce carbon monoxide. So doing something with a diesel engine doesn't reduce carbon monoxide because that's not the byproduct. Nitrogen oxides are the byproduct of diesel combustion. So, but doing something with gas cars, something to get people out of cars onto buses, onto trails, that would reduce carbon monoxide. Now, if you get people onto buses, we can get more people on buses than we do on trails. So if we bought buses and put in a new bus route in town, we'd get a high reduction. We'd have a higher number here than if we put in a new trail and a few people rode bicycles or walked on the trail. So the numbers you see here are based on the projects that are currently funded or are programmed to be funded in the next 4 years with CMAQ funds. We don't have any projects in the Pikes Peak region past 2020. Other areas in the state do go out to 2024, and that's where, on a statewide basis, you see these numbers, and they appear to go up in one category of pollutant, and they go down on another one. But that's based on the projects that have been currently selected and approved and programmed for funding. And when projects go through the competition to be selected, there is a competitive process, and there is a measure of what are they projected to reduce, how much carbon monoxide, how much volatile organic compounds, how much particulate materials will they produce. And in the selection process, the goal is to select those that are the most effective at reducing, or the most cost effective at reducing the pollutants. We don't have a lot of projects right now, and we're not projecting any beyond 2020. So in our area, when we go down and look further at the actual forecast and data measurements for our area, we don't have real high numbers, and some years we don't have any at all.
Hal, you had a question?
Yeah, I guess I'm as confused as is possible to be. If I look at VOC 101, which is the current condition, is that an actual number, or is that?
That is a calculated number that for the projects that are CMAQ funded in the state, they are
How much it will reduce VOC by?
they will reduce VOC by 101.5 kilograms per day. 2 years from now, in 2020, some of these projects will they'll be closed out. They won't be funded by CMAQ anymore, and so in that next 2-year time period, there will only be enough projects reducing 86 kilograms. 2 years later, in 2022, is that right? Other projects that are currently programmed and selected for those years will increase that reduction. This is all mathematical reduction up to 105. So it's a measure of projects that are programmed.
So can I say that the bottom 4 lines there, the higher the number, the better utilization of the project for reduction of the pollutant?
Excellent. Yes, very good.
Above that, it's the actual percentage is an indication of performance.
Yes. So you're right. That's a good summary. The last 4 is a summary of projects. All of the performance measures above that is actually the performance of the roads.
Very interesting. Thank you. I guess the only other question I had, I'm sorry. The 2 that are in gray, particularly the peak hour excessive delay. Again, I look at that as an increase in excessive delay, and a 12% increase with the 4-year target. I know we're trying to do the opposite of that. These aren't our actual numbers, is that correct? These are federal directed numbers?
Yeah, this is Dr. Cog only, because that's the only region in the state that this applies to. So this is a Denver number. They're currently at 48 hours. Then they're going to go up to 52, then 54.
Ignore the gray.
Okay.
So
For the next 2 years.
for the next 2 years. Now, what all of these performance measures are here are it's a 4-year target with a mid-year or a 2-year review period. And at the mid-year period, we may go in, the state can go in and review, revise the targets as appropriate, or leave them as they are. And that's where, if the timing is right, in 2 years at that midpoint, if we are no longer a maintenance area for carbon monoxide, we can drop out of that whole section, and it won't apply to us. And this will be an ongoing thing is for as long as the law stands, and this is just the initial first 4-year period, but as we move through, there'll be, these time periods will continue, and performance measures will continue. But you are allowed to change them. You're not locked into something now, and it's a brand-new system for the entire world, or the entire nation. For many of us, we've already got our TIP approved before we've set targets. We're in the process of developing a long-range plan, and so our plan that we will approve next year, we can incorporate the targets into it, and we will have a report as to how well the projects that we include in the plan address our performance measures. But it's backwards for the TIP, because our TIP has already just been approved a few months ago.
All right, thanks, Ken. Any other discussion? Can I have a motion from someone, please?
I do have a question.
No.
No, well, okay.
Go ahead.
Understand what the material is.
Go ahead.
Ken, just a question. What is our role vis-a-vis the memorandum that's in your packet? You attached a memorandum that speaks to, I guess, adoption by the board of directors of these goals,
Right.
these measures, right?
This is an action item, and I am asking that you make a recommendation. Staff would, and TAC are recommending that PPACG adopt the state targets rather than adopting our own targets. If we, like I say, if we want to change that 2 years from now, we can do that. But right now, for this first go-around, and with only a month left before the federal deadline, we think it was advisable. There is no benefit to adopting our own.
But that will result in this memo being executed.
Right, we're required to have that memorandum of understanding, and that will replace the memorandum of understanding that we have for the safety target that was adopted last year.
Okay, thank you.
What? Hi. What's the name of the MPO? It says MPO name.
That's PPACG. The CDOT is developing the standard memorandum of understanding for all of the MPOs, Grand Junction, Dr. Cog, Pueblo, Fort
That's
Collins.
This whole.
So we will,
Okay.
we will replace all that MPO name with the PPACG.
Okay. Thank you. I thought maybe there was.
And I did discover some other minor grammatical and spelling something, so, but this has been being reviewed statewide by all the MPOs
So
and
everybody
CDOT.
just puts their- Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Put forward a motion to accept the memorandum.
Second, I'm off.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank
you very much. Motion carries. All right. You're up again, Ken.
It's still me.
It is.
Amendment number 2 to our TIP is a request from the City of Colorado Springs to cancel a project, the Sand Creek Trail project that goes from North Carefree Circle to Barnes Road. I think it's about a mile and a quarter. They will not be able to obligate the funds that was awarded for that project. And so rather than lose the funds and have them taken away from PPACG, they're requesting to cancel the project return the funds to PPACG so that we can then get them obligated through some other procedure, whether that's cost overruns, another call for projects. It'll most likely be cost overruns, or as the item that I just withdrew until next month, there is a request in that cost overruns to use the funds that are canceled from this project on another project, and may well have additional projects next month, so that's why this item was withdrawn. Not often that we have a project that's being canceled, but what would happen in the past is that CDOT, who had a big bank account, was able to kind of launder our money or spend our old money and then replace it with newer money so that we wouldn't lose it. Well, they're no longer able to do that. And so if we run up against the legal deadline, which in this case is June 30th of 2020, if we haven't obligated the dollars, it's not spent, it's obligated. If we haven't obligated the dollars, then FHWA will take the money back. It's not even somebody else in the state that gets to use it. Colorado loses the money. So that's the big push, and we've been working with our member entities to make them aware of that change and what CDOT is able to do to help us, and this is the first significant fallout. So,
yes, Jim.
I move that we recommend the adoption and acceptance of TIP Amendment 2 to the fiscal 2019-2022 TIP.
Thank you.
Who seconded that?
Kim? All in favor? Oh, sorry, discussion? Sorry.
Okay. Just a quick question. Is this the practical application of the policy that we were reviewing last time? That
As a matter of fact, yes. For those that weren't here last month, well, the last 2 months, we had a cost overrun policy that was worded such that the feds interpreted it that if an entity canceled a project, that they could unilaterally transfer that money over to another one of their own projects. And they cannot do that. The money that comes through PPACG belongs and stays with PPACG. So if a project is canceled, the money must come back to PPACG for us then to redistribute it, reallocate it through our process. And that was what we just revised, and the board just approved a couple of weeks ago, revising that policy that explains explicitly that the money comes back to PPACG. So in this case, yes, this money is coming to PPACG, and next month there will be an item for addressing cost overruns, and there will be a request to use this money for a cost overrun, at least one cost overrun.
Okay. May I ask a follow-up question? So it will, when the funds are canceled, because they may be used a variety of different ways, it's sort of up to us to kind of keep track that we see it come back in another sort of action request, like what you're talking about in the future, right?
Because if it doesn't come, well, this is bringing the money back to us.
Right.
Then what PPACG has to do is to make sure now that we get that money back out someplace else and get it obligated, or we will lose it.
Okay.
You know, whether it's sitting in our bank or the city's bank or the county's bank, if it's not obligated July 30th of 2020, then the money is gone.
Okay. Thank you.
Tamara?
So, trying to kind of summarize, let me know if I'm missing anything. So it looks like Tim Roberts submitted this cancellation of this Sand Creek project from I-25.
Correct.
Barnes think. And then Steve Bodette is requesting in agenda item 4C, which we're postponing. But within that document, Steve is saying that he's canceled his own project, which is the Sand Creek project, and he wants now apply to the Cottonwood Creek, the other trail project.
Correct.
The Greenway. So
Now,
is that the process? So these kind of goes back to Aubrey, what you're saying is this is how we're keeping track of getting money back, spending the money.
well, what happened in this case is that he came forward with that request to cancel the project just the week before the TAC meeting, and that mail-out was a couple of days before the deadline for submitting requests for cost overruns. So the city was the only one that was aware that that money was available, that $500,000. And so at the TAC meeting, this was brought up, and the other entity said, we would also be interested in that money, and we weren't aware of it, so we would like, now that the deadline is over, so we have reopened the request for cost overruns and given them a new deadline, and so I'm expecting a different set of requests coming forward next month, where it sounds like the county will also be requesting those funds. And so then it will be, so the fact that they have returned them to us and have requested them from us, it's not a guarantee that they're going to get them.
Right, and I think this was one of the points that we were struggling with is how the different entities are going to play nice together and share the funds from canceled project. Because if I was Steve, Parks and Rec, he's saying, I'm giving up $500,000, but I need that $500,000 because he actually has, he needs $1.2 million when initial costs were more closer to around $500,000. So now Steve's going to give up a project and may not get the money back that he's giving up. I think this was one of the things I struggled with when we were going through all of this, is how is this all going to work out? I mean, obviously, ideally, everyone's going to work together and everyone's going to make some sacrifices. But I think this would be the interesting part that we actually get to see exactly how all that TIP amendment that you guys, we discussed for the last 2 months is actually going to work in the real life situation. So I'll be interested, and definitely I'll be here next month, so I can sit through that. I think Steve has a really good claim on that money, but that's just my opinion.
We will see how friendly everybody is next month.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to get it clear in my head.
No, that's exactly right.
Bruce?
Yeah, my question is that with regard to these funds that go back into this pool, I'm assuming that probably any of the communities or whatever can apply for, put an application in for that money? Or?
Yes, they can.
And who makes the decision as to how it's allocated or obligated?
We do, and we being staff, the
Okay.
Transportation Advisory Committee, and the Community Advisory Committee. We will make recommendations to the board, and the board will make the decision.
Okay. So it's actually with Parks and Recs here, there is absolutely no guarantee that they will get that money.
There is no guarantee, and especially if the county sounded like they were interested.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
How does that
Okay.
work? Like, how will we be able to make the decision in favor of county or Parks and Rec with this fund? I mean, what's that process if we look and our role in that other than we recommend something, but I need some information to recommend to the board that Parks and Rec should get that funding or county gets that funding? How will that work?
well,
Is that going to be like a little...
you remember that one of the other items on that revision of our cost overrun policy was changing the word or the phrase project scores will be used, or project scores became may be used. The TAC has asked the 3 projects that we have that you saw in the packet. One came from the 2008 TIP that was approved 10 years ago. One came from the 2017 2010 tip, and then one came from the 2017 tip. There were 3 separate scoring criteria systems used. So even though I'm going to give the project scores and the original project scores, they also asked us to score them with the new 2045 plan scores that we're using for our long-range plan. So there'll be an apple and orange and a pear score. That's their original score. And then there'll be a brand-new one and all 3 of them will be avocados. And then that'll be part of what you use, but the rest of it will be why wasn't a project done in 10 years? If it was programmed in 2010, why are we now 8 years later having a cost overrun? Why isn't the project done a long time ago? What's the significance of not doing the delay? They don't have their own local money enough for the full cost, so the project will be stopped, reduced. I mean, those type of things, the urgency, the significance of the money shortage, I think would come into it. Now, hopefully, they will play nicely. The idea I had with the 3 projects that were here, the TAP funds could go from one trail project to another trail project. It still came through us, but that met what the city was looking for. The city has sounded like a $6 million shortage, cost overrun on their project. And they asked for $4 million, and we only have $1.5 million. Manitou Springs wanted just about a little over half of that money. Well, if Manitou Springs got the money they wanted, there would still be $700,000 left that could go to the city of Colorado Springs. They're getting another $500,000 from the trail project swap. Those were the only 2 at the time asking for funds. The city's not going to get all the money they want no matter what. They wanted $4 million. We don't have it. So they could play nicely if they worked it out that way. If you read the memo or the project description that was in there for Manitou, they're living with the consequences of some serious mistakes that were made in the management of those funds and projects over time, and then the current people there weren't involved, but they've inherited it. So how much of a sympathy factor plays into something like this?
Okay, yes, sorry.
I just had a question of timing. So that will come back to us before the PBACG votes on who gets the money?
Correct. You will make a recommendation to the board. That is the standard procedure.
And I think we're just trying to make sure that we're going to have enough information to be able to evaluate the projects and, consider each one. So I assume we'll have whatever information staff is going to use as well.
You will get whatever staff and TAC has. And if there is something more that you would like, let me know now, and we can start digging it up and bring it to you next month and to TAC.
So should the representatives, so Steve, Robin, and whoever's at Manitou Springs, Michelle, should they be here and counting? So I'm assuming these are.
I have asked them to be here so that they can answer the details on their projects, because I don't know the details.
I think
Great.
that would be really helpful for us because there's these qualitative sympathy factors that I think all of us are going to implement when we cast our vote for which one we want to recommend. I think that would be.
Yes.
Has the deadline passed for people to ask for this money? Or
I'm
not?
sorry,
Has the deadline passed to apply for this?
The first deadline passed. That was a week before the TAC meeting. It was a Friday, a week ago, last Friday. A new deadline has been set for October 5th.
October 5th? I don't know if because I'm new to this, as you know, whether Green Mountain Falls could apply for this, because we've had such a disaster up there. Would this be the type of money that we could apply for?
I don't think Green Mountain Falls currently has any projects in the tip that I'm aware of, but
We've got something, but maybe it's in a different, it's PPRTA, I guess.
yeah, the PPRTA, you should have, because you're a member of the
But
PPRTA,
could
and
they
there's no
apply?
federal funds there. These projects that we're talking about all have federal funds that come through PPACG, and we are involved in the selection, and you are, because you make a recommendation for the selection of those projects originally.
So would Green Mountain Falls have to make another, I mean, they can't go through this route at all, is that right?
Yeah, no, this wouldn't, this money would not be able to help your PPRTA projects.
Or anything?
No, this is
It's really
for
bad up
projects,
there.
projects programmed with federal dollars in the tip.
I'd like to call the question, please.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor of the motion to forward this to the board?
Aye.
Okay. All opposed? Awesome. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All confused,
Can I
yeah.
ask one question after now that we've voted?
Yes.
Do the funds that became available have to be used for cost overruns, or can they be used for any project that we want to apply them to, as long as they follow the guidelines?
We could develop a different purpose for them.
Because this is $2.2 million, just a round number of new funds.
So, yeah, if there was something that would be eligible for these funds, and the board thought it was a better use of the money to put it all in one pot and do something big, that could be done.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, Jessica.
I'm going to stand up because I'm going to mess with something right after this. Okay. Jessica McMullen, your Policy and Communications Manager. I am here to talk with you guys about the Nominations Committee. Each year, we need to determine who your chair, vice chair, and second vice chair will be for the upcoming year. Our goal is to have these voted on by the board in December. That means we need a nominating committee formed this month so that they have the chance to review and consider applicants in October and November and present those to the CAC at the December board meeting. Your wonderful memo from me has a couple of errors. I don't ever do that, you all know. One of those things is it says our second vice chair is currently Sharon Thompson, which is not true. And the other thing that is important that I don't have noted in here is that the wonderful chair, Michelle, finishes her second term in May of next year. So if you do choose to select her as your chair for next year as well, that's only going to last for half the year, and you're going to have to find another one mid-year. So, all of your details regarding selection of officers and how this works, we're in this. What we need are for 3 to 5 people to recommend or volunteer to serve on the nominating committee. It cannot be 4, it must be the numbers 3 or 5. Traditionally, we have done 3. So I need 3 people or 5 people to volunteer, and then a motion to be made to accept them as the nominating committee. Does anyone have any questions?
Would anyone like to volunteer? I think you had offered to volunteer last month.
I'll volunteer.
Okay.
Jim.
Got Jim.
All right.
Come on, someone else. Hal.
Hal? Bruce, was your hand up?
One
You
more.
sure?
One more.
One more.
Come on, eye contact with me, people.
How
many meetings are we talking? Typically, it's 1.
Yeah.
You do 1 email, goes out to the entire CAC saying, hey, who's interested in serving in an officer position? And then your 1 meeting is to interview those people, and then afterwards you stay behind and discuss who you're suggesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Thanks,
Jim, Hal,
Terry.
and Terry. Thank you all very much. I need a
All right.
motion.
Oh, I can't do that.
Oh, I move that we accept these people for the nominating committee.
All in favor? All opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, so the reason I'm actually up here is for the strategic plan. So, in your packets, you have a copy of the strategic plan draft. Between when we sent it and today, we have been to the TAC and the MCC committees. Some of them did make a couple of recommendations, some of which are very minor, and some of which are, I want to make sure you hear them. Now, none of these are accepted by the board. None of these have already been said, these are staying different. Any recommendations you make today, I will not only incorporate into suggested changes as possible, but I will compile them for board members. So I need you to email me any comments you want the board to see. This is very important. I need them by Monday the 1st. The reason for this, I am going to be taking out any identifying information as needed to make sure that everybody's opinions are given the same weight. And I'm going to combine things where possible so that like comments are grouped together for the board. It is very important that as the Community Advisory Committee, your voice is one of the most important in the context of what BPACG's vision and strategic plan should be. So I want to make sure you all hear this. Email me your comments. I'll take what I can here in person, but I do want to make sure you all hear my email me your comments.
So, Jessica, you'd like those verbally provided to you, correct? I'm getting the evil eye. Okay.
That's called stink eye. So, the couple of quick things that I did want to point out that were suggested by the TAC or the MCC. The TAC was uncomfortable, suggested that they might not like the language listed under leadership. They felt like it implied that the board just approved whatever the committee said, and they just wanted to make sure that the language talked about the board as the policy development group. So, small language tweak. I put it in. It made sense to me that that would be something they'd want to change. Now, before I go any farther than that first tweak, do you guys want to go through the goals and the objectives and the strategies one by one? Do you want me to summarize them and have you guys bring up any issues, or do you want me to just say we're on advocacy, who's got a comment?
Could you just summarize? I think that would be
Okay.
helpful.
I'm going to do this the quick way. Advocacy objectives, develop an effective advocacy voice for common ground issues. We said we wanted to be a convener in community issues, build coalitions with like-minded stakeholders, and focus on influencing legislation, regulation, and rule making. The reasons why these things are in here: we want to make sure that PPACG is serving as a place where people can get information, where people can convene, and where we can use the leverage that we have from having 16-member governments, community representatives, and assist in making changes where they're helpful for our communities and for PPACG.
Oh, great, sorry.
Microphone.
So can you give an example of what this coalition might look like? Would it be
So it would depend on the topic.
Would it be more like a task force, like a task-related, kind of temporary, like a time-confined type of group? I guess has such a coalition existed before?
So typically what we mean by building coalitions is if we realize that there is an incredible problem with purple cows that is influencing Park County, Teller County, and El Paso County. Everybody who is impacted by the purple cows will talk together and yell at the state capitol together and say, lobbyist, address this purple cow issue. That's all the coalition is getting more people all in the same direction in order to influence legislation.
Okay.
So it's not a task force, it's not anything working, it's people who have all committed that this matters and they'd like to change it. Anything else on advocacy? You guys are so easy. Our second one is information sharing objectives and strategies. This is where I'm going to point out that a lot of these interconnect very tightly. Under information sharing, we want to become a significant resource for PPACG members to collect and share information with regional partners. We want to be a central location for plans, studies, resources, establish a protocol for standardization and sharing of data. One of the really important aspects of that is data security. And I'm going to call that out specifically just because it's been an issue in the past year or two for different government agencies. And to be a convener for members on cross-community issues. And when we say be a convener, there are a lot of issues that are not PPACG issues. We know it. We're not in their wheelhouse. It's not our issue. A great example of that is homelessness. But we've had a lot of our members say, this is an issue where I am. And they want a place where they can all get together and talk and have the experts who are already working on the subject compare notes so that nobody is duplicating efforts, nobody is trying things that other people have already tried and failed at, that we're learning from each other and with each other. Does anyone have any questions on information sharing?
So you mentioned security is one of the data sharing.
Mm-hmm.
What other data are you envisioning that would fall under this
So
objective?
the big goal here is that everybody would be able to access, all of the members would be able to share information. So if the City of Colorado Springs and El Paso County both did a road analysis, they could combine their data and get a clearer picture. One of the goals would be so that if the city and Fountain were going to be both doing an analysis, they could combine forces and pay for it together to save both organizations, both municipalities, money. It's to make sure that our planning studies, our road quality studies, our environmental studies, when done in one specific area, we see where we can connect those and where we can relay them to each other. A lot of the studies and plans that are made talk about best practices. Well, if best practices for Woodland Park aren't all that similar from Teller County or Park County or Fountain or Manitou, there are a lot of places where there will be overlap. And by having us able to look at each other's plans, the current premise is only completed plans, but that way we can learn from each other and look at each other's data.
So would you go as far as basically data, you talked about planning, so you got ADT for vehicle plans, future ADT. What about utilities and stormwater? I mean, would that be all kind of encompassed with that?
I would say up to our members.
Yeah, Andy Gunning with PPACG. This is one, I think, where there's just not as much coordination as there really should be. We do transportation and a lot of other things here at PPACG. We handle a lot of demographic data because we have to feed two big models that we use to run our transportation planning process, our travel model and land use model. City of Colorado Springs maintains other data sets, El Paso County, some others. So we need to have some more kind of collaboration of who has what and make sure we're maintaining stuff on the right network and the right base so we can share stuff back and forth and not duplicate efforts. That's kind of the big picture idea. A lot of other communities do that. And we just saw that there's a lot of room in this space to really do just more deliberative collaboration. And maybe maybe the City of Colorado Springs, they take the lead on stormwater, for instance, or whoever the main entity is. But yes, it would include utilities, mostly public sector data, but maybe some other nonprofit sectors as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'll chime in on that is one of the other examples of that we've talked about is GIS data. We have a lot of very good GIS data. We'd like to make it possible for us to do information sharing with our members with that, and leveraging all of our members who do have services, but to assist members who do not, making sure it's good for everyone.
It might be helpful. I had the impression from the board meeting this month that this is a first-time product.
Yes.
Correct? And that it was generated through the various task groups or whatever that included members of the board in it. So I'm intrigued at the board's concern that they are going to be viewed as a rubber stamp on something that they've been generating the policy and discussion on. So.
And that is, our board was very, very clear. They want comments from the committees. They want feedback. This has thus far been developed by the board met and did a retreat. Board members selected vision groups within the major conclusions from that retreat. Those vision groups met, developed the goals and objectives. Staff were provided those goals and objectives and proposed strategies that would help them reach those goals and objectives, with an understanding that some things will require longer motion and some things we can put into place sooner or easier. But now we're at the point where we need to know what people think about these. So, okay, I'm going to jump us to the next one. Aging objectives and strategies. This'll sound a whole lot like what you already know our aging department does. Provide access, awareness, education, and connectivity so individuals can age wherever they want. The main objectives there are coordinate and support regional efforts regarding transportation for seniors, increasing outreach and education efforts, and collect information and support regional network efforts for senior housing, and support connectivity efforts for seniors. Now, I'm going to pull out a couple of things here. We call out senior housing. PPACG does not provide it, we don't build it, we don't fund it. But our members are all highly engaged in this topic. It is an issue of concern to all of our regions. So we would like to help raise awareness through convening stakeholders and maybe assist with the collection of information on the availability of housing or identifying gaps or needs. So some of these strategic plan items aren't PPACG will do the work, but PPACG will get the right people in the room and help provide them the data they need. So,
Are the staff being asked also to provide feedback for all of the components in this strategic plan? In other words, have the Medicare counselors that are on the other wing,
they are the ones who developed the strategies. So we sat down with the entire Area Agency on Aging staff to review all of these objectives and goals, suggest tweaks to language, and to develop the strategies we felt were necessary. There was one comment at the MCC yesterday suggesting that one of the things we need to add in regarding transportation for seniors is something addressing that many seniors can drive if given additional assistance or training, and awareness of what they need to do that. So that note is in there. I have not identified language. I'm hoping that person will send me a good email on it, and I'm going to nag them if they don't soon. Any thoughts on the aging? Okay, transportation objectives and strategies. We want to, again, this one is going to sound really familiar, and the reason why is because it's federally and state mandated. Develop and maintain a coordinated, validated plan for transportation needs across the PPACG region. You'll notice we already do this. Everything we do has to go through certain qualifications, has to be validated, has to prove that it's going to work together. We know these things. At the TAC presentation, they did point out that the language I had included in the goal you guys had that just said TPRs and COGS are different didn't necessarily provide a valid information. So we actually looked at those. As an MPO, we're federally required to develop the Long-Range Transportation Plan and the Transportation Improvement Plan. But the Transportation Planning Region is a mechanism by which the state plans and programs state transportation funding. So I actually described that difference, which wasn't in the draft you have. So some of those big things: ensure coordinated transportation planning not only within the PPACG MPO, but between the MPO and the Central Front Range TPR. The MPO is the Colorado Springs urbanized area. It does not include Victor. It does not include anything in Park County, but the transportation planning region does. Our COG region does. Our CDOT region does. And we wanted to make sure from all of our board members, from all of our staff, and from some of our coordination with all of these groups, that we are coordinating our plan in places where we can. Important things within this: MPO money cannot be spent outside of the MPO. But we can leverage our efforts in the different regions to coordinate each other and to try to recruit funding through different sources. Within this, we did get a comment that as we look at economic development and community groups, that military should be highlighted a little bit stronger than it was. So we just moved military installations to the top of the list. And that travel reduction is no longer the correct phrase, it's travel demand management. And instead of intelligent transportation systems, it's intelligent transportation systems coordination. All of these are details I did not know from the TAC. So ensure that coordinated transportation planning among entities within the MPO and TPR. Utilize performance-based measurements to develop project lists. That's everything we already do by state and federal requirements. Those are the judgments that you guys make when you establish the goals and weighting of the goals. And then explore and pursue all funding mechanisms to serve all modes of transportation in the PPACG region. Again, you know that we do a lot of this, but the things that we'll be changing is looking a little bit more at state and federal grant opportunities. Not only keeping our members aware of them through us, but also trying to make sure that community organizations that may be able to apply are also aware of them. We currently have no grant writing capability. We monitor these as they become easily visible. We hope, you'll notice within the strategies, to upgrade our capabilities, to assist in the writing and submittal, to bring additional funding into the region. Some of these things we'd like to do. Our strategies say we'll goal to do it, and some of these things require the board to give us money. We have no control over that. The strategic plan is the vision, where we'd like to go. The budget is influenced by actual reality. Does anyone have any comments on transportation?
Comment. You know, that last thing, you said it's an aspiration to help write grants. So does that require more people to be hired into the PPACG to have that expertise?
Not necessarily.
Do you know?
It really is one of those cases of, as the board is choosing what strategic directions they want to push us in with the highest priority, they will determine whether they want current staff time redirected in that direction, whether they want to cancel another effort to provide for that to happen,
to help out,
or whether they'd like to increase staff time, capabilities, etc.
But if someone like me from Green Mountain Falls thought that was an important point, I could bring that out in my comments to you.
Yes.
Okay.
You could, comments that said, this is very important and would be a great source of benefit to PPACG members are always accepted. Okay, the last one is one that came about because there are a lot of things PPACG is already doing very, very, very well. All of those earlier ones were doing well. We know we're doing well, but there were a couple of places that the board came up with, hey, we could do better. So program excellence objectives and strategies. Continue to excel in the key fundamental areas of PPACG, military support, environmental programs, and board member cohesion and collaboration. Maintain and grow the excellent collaborative relationship with the military community in the region, completing the joint land use study, beginning the implementation of that study. And again, from the TAC, we did get a comment that, again, we need to call out the transportation needs of the military and how we coordinate with them. So just a quick suggestion is to continue to support the economic growth and transportation needs of the military. That aligns with things we have done historically. It aligns with what our transportation area really says and does now, while also continuing to point out that we can't spend money on bases. We can only spend money on objects in the TIP and the long-range transportation plan. We support you. Any thoughts on that? Continue to support effective environmental programs that support regional efforts. Protecting air and water quality by collaborating with stakeholders throughout the region. Our air and water quality management committees are both very broad community stakeholders to try to make sure that we are doing this. But again, being proactive in cross-community environmental issues, such as wildfire mitigation, stormwater, and other regional concerns through collaborative efforts. Let's get people together when they've got concerns that run across each other. And remaining a strong, cohesive, and collaborative board of directors by continuing to inform the board on available opportunities. So that's things like ensure that the smaller communities are aware of things like the DOLA mini grant opportunities, providing information to the board on available grant opportunities like we talked about in transportation, and continuing to encourage board members to share information and concerns for each of their communities. If all of the board members do step up and share, hey, I'm in my budget this year, I planned for a study. This study touches you. If they all share those kind of things, they can say, hey, I was going to do that study next year, but I can do it this year if I only have to pay 10 grand instead of 30. So.
Jessica, I don't have language for you, but the way that it's actually reads, it sounds like or needs to include, he needs to remain strong until he's by being board. It just seems like it's kind of a circular sentence. There may be better phrasing that keeps the first part, and by continuing to find some language.
Get information, pretty much?
That doesn't reference the board.
Yeah.
So, talk to you at some point.
Yeah.
Minor thing, but
Yeah.
it reads a little bit ambiguous.
I will work on tweaking that language a little bit, but if you can also just send me that in a comment so that I can present that. Some of these, you'll notice that I put in here pretty easily. I felt like they made perfect sense. They aligned with what the board meant, the vision group meant, and the staff meant. So I'm just going to present them like this. But I want to include in all of them, hey, here's some comments that talk about where I got this. I didn't just make it up from the meeting. You don't have to watch the video to prove I'm not lying. Aubrey?
The goal language on this one is a little wonky. And are these really the key fundamental areas of PPACG? So just a thought, I'll email this too, but I wonder if something a little more general, like continue to excel in supporting collaboration and efficient use of resources, might be a better catch-all that sort of fits all of those. Just a thought.
Email it to Jessica.
You all like my nod in agreement for the email me face.
Okay.
Yes, Michael.
No, go ahead.
So I made this comment yesterday in MCC more, and I'll say I'm really excited by the fact that a strategic plan is being developed for PPACG, and I think the broad focuses here totally make sense. Where it's going to get more interesting is probably prioritizing what issues within all of these strategies we want to focus on. But I'm curious, what was the thought process with not identifying a timeline for what the strategic, or is there a timeline? Is this a 5-year strategic plan, or
Turn the page.
Or
So we do not actually specify that, but during our meetings, we did say our goal is for this to be a 2 to 4 year process for these goals. And the reason for that is we want things to have a push to actively happen. We'd like to see things happen while our board of directors stay on the board. As term limits and elections happen, things do change. We'd like everyone to see progress on their goals. But we know that some of these cannot be done quickly. So we'd like to see as many of the strategies pushed forward. But we understand that, we don't have $1 million to do all the studies that might be suggested or needed.
Yeah, that's a great point and great observation. And my hope is that as we finish this up, it's going to be adopted by the board ideally in October. We're also working on our budget and our work program for next year, which starts in January 2019, that working with all of our managers internally, we're identifying a handful, maybe a half dozen of these that we can begin implementing next fiscal year. That's my goal. I've got a few in mind already that I think we can move forward without breaking the bank and without having to add additional staff or things like that. So we're going to start identifying internally what's short-term, what's long-term, maybe 2 to 3 years out, and what's maybe ongoing or as needed. Some of these, like the convening notion, is there whenever we need it, whether it's homelessness or whatever issue. But that's kind of our next step as we get this fleshed out and the board adopts it in October. I'd like to come back as we're doing our budget for next year to identify short-term, medium-term, and so forth.
Jim?
Well, I think you've just touched on one thing that I would be concerned about, and that is making sure that your key documents interrelate.
Yep.
Too often, this kind of thing gets done, put on the shelf, and it gets pulled out again in 2 or 3 years and revised and put back on the shelf.
The budget, work program, and strategic plan have all been working together in coordination right now.
Okay.
The board sees the draft budget and has some questions going to be presented to them at our October meeting. But they don't vote on that until November. So they'll vote on the strategic plan in October, hopefully. They'll vote on the budget in November, and they'll vote on the work program in December.
Okay.
That way they have the chance to make sure that all of these items flow together and are addressing the items the board prioritizes.
The other thing that I would observe is that, in my experience with this, one of the easiest ways to assure that you're tracking is to piece it out and include it in the agenda for the board. So you've got, like, you have 5 major goal areas. You could rotate those through the year twice to bring forward new information, updates, where we are with, is it going to be 3 years? We can advance it, or we thought we could do it in 2, and it looks like it's got to slide out and have some rationale. But that then imparts to the board, you're paying attention to it. Okay.
Are you sure?
Yes.
No. Tim?
Just one compliment on this. Out of all the strategic plans that I've seen, this one is readable, it's concise. So I don't know who put this together. Did you guys hire a consultant of some kind? You? Good. You could go into consulting for strategic plans because, the ones I've been are 6 months of painful. And then when you get it done, you can't read it.
And I'll say
So-
a lot of this was done in coordination.
Yeah.
And the one thing I'd like to point out is the implementation plan. I hope you all notice, this talks about, this is a goal. This is something that's going to take time. It's going to be done in stages. This is something that we're hoping is funding that's repetitive rather than one-time grants. We're going to connect the annual work program, the budget. We're going to be trying to keep everything together. And it's going to be publicly available. We want people to know what we do, how to do it with us, and it's going to be part of our website outreach and regular meeting dates. And we'll be regularly updating the board on this. Much like Jim said, we want people to know where we are and how we are and what we're doing on these. This will not go on a shelf, or I'll light fire to my own head. This was too much work.
And Jessica's being modest. She wrote the vast majority of this, did a fantastic job, and we've saved ourselves a lot of money by doing this. I think when I first got here back in February, the initial plan was we were thinking about hiring a consultant, and we had, I think, $60,000.
$60,000.
Yeah, so this cost us, I think, $500 with a facilitator, with a retreat, and a lot of staff time that Jessica put into it. So we feel good about it as well. Appreciate that. Yeah.
And the advantage of a fellowship from the military, who helped us with arranging things and taking notes and coordinating. Does anyone have any other comments they want to give me today?
How did you want those comments again?
I need them before Monday. So Monday
Email.
at noon is the deadline.
But Monday's the deadline. Email.
Everyone has a thought. I know you do. You're all very smart
Email.
people. Email me your thoughts
Email.
and comments.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yes. Good job. Excellent.
Okay. Is there anything else you have?
I'm done. I'm just.
Oh, okay. I just
getting
wanted
us
to
the
make
next
sure you were
part.
finished before we moved
Yeah,
on.
you don't need me to talk no more. I don't
Okay, meetings around the holidays. There was a request towards the end of last meeting to look at our November, December schedule. And right now, the November meeting is the 28th, which is the week after Turkey Day. So I believe that is going to stay as currently scheduled. I don't see any reason to move that unless anybody has any significant objection. Okay. So December meeting falls the day after Christmas, and I know while this is where every single one of you would prefer to be the day after Christmas, I submit we should probably look at moving that. You're just being contrary, Hal.
I fully support that.
So,
The dog that pulls the sled?
yeah, so I was thinking the 19th, which is the week prior. Do we have any conflicts with location? Yeah, any other meetings currently scheduled in this place at?
We do not have any conflicts that we are currently aware of for moving it to December 19th.
Okay. So does anybody have any other suggestions, ideas, thoughts about moving that meeting?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Well, then, you may consider the meeting in December to be December 19th, 3 o'clock here, as usual, and Jessica will update our calendar and website accordingly.
We'll get those updates.
Awesome. All right, that's all I have on December. Any member announcements? Yes, Bruce.
And just a couple things. In Victor,
Microphone.
last few years.
Put your microphone.
In Victor, over the last few years, we've done quite a number of infrastructure improvements in the downtown area, and we're going to finally finish up our last phase this month, or hopefully this month. Anyways, they're going to have a ribbon cutting, if anybody's interested, on October 10th at 11 o'clock, and we're going to have representatives from the state, from DOLA, and other places will be there. So we've done paving, we did all the underground stuff. We underground all of our utilities. We've got everything set up for broadband. All the tubing and everything's underground. We've improved drainage. We've paved, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, lighting, landscaping. And so the downtown area is really seeing a vast improvement over now probably about the last 7 or 8 years. It's taken a long time. So it's looking pretty good. And my wife's happy now because in front of our house, the street's paved. No more dust.
If you have more information that you'd like us to share with the committee, you can send that out to us and we'll forward it to everybody.
Oh, okay. All right. A couple of just general events that are coming up. This Saturday, the 29th, the Victor Business Alliance is sponsoring a wine tasting in Victor, so it'll probably be over on the 3rd Street Plaza. And then on, what is it? I believe it's Friday, October 5th, we're doing a Fireman's Appreciation Day. And so it's going to be free food and everything, just to appreciate the fire department and the job that they've done. They've lowered our, I can always forget the insurance rating. ISO. We've lowered it from a 6 to a 4.
Great.
Wow.
And that fire chief we have has just done an awesome job in the last 2.5 years at getting that improved.
That's on the 5th?
On the 5th of October. Yeah.
Friday.
Yeah. And that'll start sometime in the early afternoon. So we'll have food, and they're going to have a band and some other things there. So if anybody's interested in coming up, just come up and just check us out. You know, the city, if you haven't been up there in a few years, you'll see quite a few changes. I mean, we still have an issue with empty storefronts, and we're working on that because I sit on the Main Street program. So we've been working that for quite a number of years. But I noticed in the strategic plan here, the bullet about DOLA. DOLA has been a huge help to the city of Victor. And I think right now we're considered their poster child for things that can be done by people who have a little bit of initiative and drive. So anyways, hope to see you in Victor.
Great. Thanks, Bruce. Hal?
Unfortunately, I couldn't make the last meeting. I did see in the minutes that Ann is going to be going through the water quality management meeting next week. I'm on that committee. I'm actually a member, and I've been at the last couple of meetings around the upcoming plan. So
That's
I'll see
great.
you there.
Well, thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. I was going to mention that myself. And I'm from Green Mountain Falls, and we're just a little tiny place with not much money, and the town manager received an invitation from Andy. And so since I'm old and have plenty of time, Jason Wells asked me if I would come. And I took a lot of notes, and I'm very interested. This is all about water quality and Ute Pass. Well, the only wastewater treatment down the pass is Woodland Park, and then Manitou and Colorado Springs, and the Plains are having trouble, or will. And it's about water quality and the Fountain Creek watershed. I mean, there's just so much. And I was really encouraged at that meeting because, well, they're developing policy, like you have to, but the people in charge stressed, and Mr. Gunning was there too, about keep it simple. so you can get something done. And I really love that. And just as another aside, I wanted to put that Green Mountain Falls, they got a grant here. I think probably people here helped put this together. $50,000 grant for fire mitigations in our little village. A lot of it is national forest, which creates a different problem. But what was interesting to me, the funds are from the Colorado State Forest Service, matched by the Colorado Springs Utilities, the Historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation, and the Coalition for the Upper South Platte. Now, all these, you have to put it all together, and I was so glad to hear Jessica talking about maybe helping simplify, get things done. And I won't go into it, but we've got so much going on, and everybody does. But I'm going to keep going to these meetings. I'm trying to get somebody that would be an engineer that would know more than I would. I'm also going, just as because I'm chatty, I'm sorry, but I've been going to the Planning Council and the elected people in Woodland Park and John DeVoe is a member of this group, and Ellen from Teller. And you're talking about coalitions, we have the past that we worry about. So we're learning about each other's problems, and I think this is great. Thank you, and thank you for mentioning that. You're doing a good job.
Does any other member announcements?
I do a quick.
Wait, Tim had his hand up before you spoke.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we're having, the City of Colorado Springs is having an open forum at City Hall tomorrow evening between 6:30, I think, and 8:30. Subjects are going to be homelessness, VRBO, which Kono had a big part in that legislation. But it's more or less an open forum with 2 or 3, I think, of the city council members. That takes place tomorrow evening at City Hall. And the other thing is the bid board, which is another board I'm on. We're going to expand the skating in the park this year. So it'll go from like early November through February or something like that. So it'll be a lot longer period. So
Great. Thanks, Tim. Courtney?
Thank you. I'm working on my hand-raising etiquette, I promise. I did want to mention the Independence Center. We are a polling place for El Paso County elections. So we'll be open from October 22nd until the day of the election. If you happen to vote and want to drop by and see what we do at the center, it's a good time to do it, but you're voting anyway, so feel free to drop on in.
Great place to go see what
I've got time on my schedule right before the CAC meeting, so if you want to drop by on your way to the CAC meeting, I can walk you through the building. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Courtney. Any other member? No. Julie, please.
Well, on the subject of voting, everyone's ballots should be mailed out October 15th, so you can be watching for those in October. League of Women Voters is doing October 6th a pro and con ballot presentation for all the questions that are on the ballot. There are 13 state questions. It's going to be a long one, plus our county questions, not for the folks up there. They are important questions.
Wow.
So if you want to come hear about pros and cons, it's 10 to noon on October 6th, Rock Rimmon Library.
Great. Thanks, Julie.
Rock Rimmon?
Any other member announcements? Okay. Does anyone have any items for next month's meeting that they want added? Jessica?
The Peak Military Care Network will be coming to present an information item to us. They're presenting it to the board in October, so they'll be presenting it to us at the end of October. Kate
Great.
Hatton will be coming to deliver that to us.
Oh, neat.
And we all love Kate. Yeah.
Thank you. Hal?
Back on the Water Quality Management Committee, one of the things that's going on right now, and it's actually quite important, is the updating of the Water Quality Management Plan called 208 Plan. That's what next week's meeting is very specifically about. I don't know if a formal head for the environmental has been named. I don't think so yet. There are acting people in those roles. But I think it'd be very nice to have, after that plan is kind of updated, some sort of a short presentation on what kind of the key objectives, the guiding principles, things of that nature are that the Water Quality Committee comes out with. And, as I said, I'm on the committee. I am not a technical expert at the level that they are, but I guess my background makes me qualified. But I think it'd be great to have someone from the committee come and give an overview. Doesn't have to be very detailed, but I think it is very important to, the PPACG region as to what are the long-term objectives for managing water quality. That's separate from water supply.
Right.
Just so it's very clear. This is not drinking water. This is water quality management.
Right. Can we make a request that they...
I don't know when that'll really be useful.
Okay. Or...
And better yet, we should bring it here to the CAC for recommendation before it goes to the Board of Directors for adoption, which would be, I'm thinking spring, early summer. And just big picture-wise, it's looking at what our growth projections are for the region, 3 counties, not just within the urbanized area, but it covers all of Teller and Park as well. But looks at what our big wastewater planning needs are going to be matched up with our population forecast. So it's a really good moment for us to look at these big infrastructure demands on the transportation side, because we're doing the 2040 transportation plan, and also doing that with the water quality plan, which looks at wastewater provision throughout the whole region. So absolutely, we should bring a regular update, I think, maybe once a quarter, so you're up to speed on what's in the plan before you're ready to make a recommendation on it. So we'll certainly do that.
That would be appreciated. Thanks, Andy.
Sure.
And Oren, I believe you had your hand up?
I wanted to check. Next month's meeting is the 31st, right?
It is on Halloween, yes.
Wear your
Discuss holidays, we left that one out.
That's not really a holiday for us. The kids love it, but anyway. Okay, any other items for the next meeting, which is October 31st, as Oren pointed out, 3 to 5. Anybody have anything else? Awesome. Thank you all for being here. Meeting adjourned.
You're right. I have seen some backups in different power stoplights.